Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about boxes and drawing them. Why do we need to draw boxes? Well, they're the construction volume often when we're drawing product design objects. It's one of the first exercises I get students to do, and I say perhaps sometimes rather sort of flippantly that if you can draw a box, you can draw anything. Now let's have a look at actually drawing the box itself. So, now what you'll notice when I sketch, so in my case the box is going to represent a cube, okay? I'm going to draw the inside volume of it as well. Now what you'll see as I draw is I'm sort of constantly doing my checks, okay? And the checks that I'm doing are ensuring that my lines, at least minimally, are sort of parallel with each other. In fact, that's what I'm going for, to be fair. Admittedly, perspective, the orientation of perspective is such that we have our vanishing points. So our vanishing points will do this. And a good perspective, obviously, those vanishing points will get narrower, okay, the further distance they get away from the object. Now, in this instance, though, I'm just concentrating on wanting to draw a box in proportion. Okay, so how noticeable is a box when it's not in proportion? Okay, let's just draw another one. Okay, so that's noticeably a box not in proportion. Now, when does it get to a stage where when we've drawn something, it just doesn't look right? Okay, well, it is quite a narrow margin, but here obviously you can see that I've exaggerated this, so you can see that this is going counter to what a perspective orientation ought to be, as it is from this direction. Another couple of things I've done with this one as well, which makes it look less effective, is I've actually done that face there at the front, so it is almost front on. Now in perspective, there are different types of perspective we can use. We've got our sort of perspective, which is called a 2-point perspective. So this is where you have vanishing points and then you draw your object. Okay, there's my object as it sort of vanishes. Okay, into the points here, we call them vanishing points V1 and V2. Okay, but you can also get more than one perspective. So you can get another perspective as well, which is called a 3-point perspective. And that's where your vanishing points are actually, you'll get a further vanishing point, and it will be here, which is V3. Okay, now in the realms of product design, I generally suggest to students that 3 vanishing points aren't required. I mean, it's only the 2 vanishing points. But there is another perspective arrangement as well. It's when you see architectural students sometimes engaged in, and it's what's called 1-point perspective. So this is where this is all vanishing to a single point in the distance. Now the problem with this is that that face there is face on, so it's not actually in perspective at all. So to counter that, what you have to do is you have to foreshorten your vanishing point quite severely to make something look like it's actually in, you know, correct proportions. So if this was a box, you would see here that there's actually quite a lot of foreshortening going on just to make that look like it's a box. And so therefore the best sort of perspective to use, in my opinion, is the 2-point perspective. So again, I'm going to draw my top face, and I'll explain why I draw the top face in a moment. And you can see that I'm rotating the piece of paper around because it allows me quickly to get my confidence when I'm drawing these straight lines. Okay, they can be a little bit wobbly obviously, but generally you can see they're quite confident, and I'm going from point to point. You can see this one is slightly off actually in the perspective, but that doesn't matter too much. So okay, so I've drawn a box, and my default box is where you've got an angle of around about 30 degrees here. Okay, now that's me looking at this object with the face at a sort of nice sort of position where I'm not looking down on it as if I'm a seagull. Okay, I'm sort of looking at it as if I'm, say, a normal person looking at, I don't know, a toaster on a kitchen work surface. There might be a time when I want to rotate my view here. And this is why I think I draw my top view first. So if I want to rotate this view, then all I need to do is change my orientation. Okay, let's just quickly do that again. And you can see now that I'm actually looking at this face far more, not face on, because we don't want it to be face on. We don't want to go back to the sort of 1 point perspective. But I'm looking at it where I see more information here. So it's less important, say, whatever this object turned into. You know, let's say it's some sort of design. I don't know, maybe it's a printer. I've got the paper tray coming out from here. There's some other features going on. Okay, but for whatever the reason, it's that view which is the most interesting one. Now, box is a really interesting subject. And again, you know, it's not something, even though it's a box, you know, what can be complicated about a box? Actually getting the proportions right, driving the proportions, understanding the sort of orientation of the view, how high and how low you might choose to look at it are actually things which are real skills. So in my next video, I want to go a bit more and talk a little bit more about boxes. I hope you've enjoyed that.